350 horsepower. That's the number every leak promised for the 2027 Chevy Colorado's turbo engine. That's what every headline ran with. Here's what Chevy actually did instead. And stick with me, because there's one detail buried in the order guide that nobody's talking about yet, and I'm saving it for later in this video. Back in early 2026, a report claimed the Colorado's 2.7-liter TurboMax engine, the same 310 horsepower, 430 pound-foot engine that's been in the truck since 2023, was getting a serious bump. 350 horsepower, 440 pound-feet of torque. That's not a small jump. That's a 40 horsepower gain on a turbocharged four-cylinder that's already working hard. For context, that would put this four-cylinder ahead of some V8s from just a decade ago. Every outlet ran with it. Comment sections filled up with people asking if Chevy was finally going to embarrass the Toyota Tacoma and the Ford Ranger on paper. People were comparing 0 to 60 times for a truck that didn't officially exist yet. And look, I get it. On paper, that's the story everyone wanted. But here's the thing about leaks in this industry. They're usually true in spirit, wrong on timing. And that's exactly what happened here. When the 2027 Colorado order guide actually went live, something unexpected showed up. The horsepower number? Still 310. The torque number? Still 430 pound-feet, identical to the outgoing truck. But the engine itself got a brand new internal code. It's no longer the L3B. For 2027, it's designated the L4B. Sit with that for a second. Why would GM burn an entirely new regular production option code, a new engine designation in their own internal system, if literally nothing changed? They wouldn't. Automakers don't reissue an engine code for a paint refresh under the hood. A new code signals something structural. New internals, new calibration, possibly new hardware entirely. So the real story here isn't Chevy lied about 350 horsepower. The real story is that Chevy quietly redesigned this engine and chose not to touch the power rating. Yet. Now remember that detail I mentioned at the top, the one nobody's talking about? Here it is. The transmission code didn't change. It's still the same 8-speed automatic, same MFC designation, paired with a brand new engine code. Hold on to that, because it matters more than it sounds like right now. I'll come back to exactly why in a few minutes. I want to be upfront with you about what comes next. Chevy has not confirmed any of this publicly. What I'm about to walk you through is informed reasoning based on how GM has handled this exact engine platform before. Not a leak, not an official statement. I'll flag it clearly as we go because you deserve to know where the confirmed facts stop and the analysis starts. There are 3 realistic explanations for a new engine code with no power change, and each one tells a different story about where this truck is headed. The first is durability and emissions groundwork. GM may have used this update to strengthen internals, pistons, rods, turbo hardware, specifically so the engine could later be tuned toward that 350 horsepower figure in a future model year or a higher trim, without redesigning the block again. Automakers do this constantly. They engineer the headroom before they ever sell the headroom. The second is the ZR2 split. Right now, the ZR2 off-road trim and the standard TurboMax trims share the exact same 310 to 430 rating. It's plausible GM is setting up the L4B as the foundation for a future high-output variant, something exclusive to a performance or off-road trim later in the model cycle, the same way the Silverado lineup runs multiple states of tune on one base engine. The third is bigger than the Colorado. This 2.7-liter platform is shared with the Chevy Silverado 1500 and the GMC Sierra 1500. A new code across a shared architecture usually points to a platform-level change for cost, manufacturing, or supplier reasons, and the Colorado just happens to be where we're noticing it first. Again, none of these 3 are confirmed, but any one of them explains the new code without a power bump, and honestly, all 3 could be true at the same time. Now, here's why that transmission detail I flagged earlier actually matters. If GM had changed the transmission alongside the engine, that would point toward a bigger mechanical shakeup, new gearing to handle more torque, for example. But they didn't touch it. The transmission staying identical actually supports the first theory more than the others. This looks less like prep for a completely different powertrain and more like an internal refresh to the same engine, the kind of update you'd make if you were reinforcing what's already there rather than building towards something entirely new. It's a small clue, but it's the kind of detail that separates informed reasoning from just repeating a rumor. So here's what to actually watch for going forward, because these are the signals that would confirm or kill each theory. Whether the L4B uses a different turbocharger, whether compression or bore specs shift at all once full documentation leaks, whether the factory tow rating moves even slightly, that alone would be the first hard evidence something mechanical changed. And whether a higher output ZR2 or a new performance trim gets announced later in the model year, carrying that 350 to 440 figure. That last one is the one I'd put my money on. And here's my reasoning. GM has a documented pattern with the Silverado of introducing a platform quietly, then rolling out the high output version 6 to 12 months later, once the base engine has proven itself in the field. If that pattern holds for the Colorado, the 350 horsepower rumor wasn't wrong. It was just early. Let's come back to where we started, because I think it reframes everything. Everyone expected the shock to be a horsepower number. 350 on a spec sheet, a big red graphic, a clean headline. That's not what happened. The actual shock is quieter than that. Chevy had a number that would have made every headline write itself, and they chose not to use it, while still leaving a fingerprint, that new engine code, telling anyone paying close attention that something is different. That's not a company with nothing to say. That's a company playing a longer game than a single model year spec sheet. Let's zoom out for a second, because numbers only matter in context. At 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet, this TurboMax is still putting up serious numbers for a mid-sized truck. That torque figure, arriving at just 3,000 revolutions per minute, is what actually matters for towing and real-world driving, not the peak horsepower number that looks good in a thumbnail. Compare that to the segment. The Tacoma's Turbo 4 leans on hybrid assistance to reach its torque numbers. The Ranger's EcoBoost is strong, but doesn't match that low-end delivery. The Colorado is doing this with a straightforward, non-hybrid Turbo 4. Less complexity, less weight, and arguably less to go wrong over time. So even without the rumored bump, this isn't the disappointment some headlines are making it sound like. It's just not the story people expected to tell. Here's where I land. Chevy didn't shock everyone by adding 40 horsepower. They shocked everyone by not adding it, while clearly signaling that something changed anyway. That's a more patient, more calculated move than a flashy number bump, and it tells you GM is thinking further ahead than this one model year. And if that pattern with the Silverado holds true here, the truck you can order today might just be the quiet foundation for something a lot louder coming down the line. That's the real story behind the 2027 Colorado's TurboMax engine. Not the rumor everyone repeated, but what Chevy actually did, and the reasoning behind why. If you want me to break down the moment GM confirms what's really different about the L4B, make sure you're subscribed, because I'll have it here before anyone else does. Drop a comment. Do you think that 350 horsepower version is still coming, or did GM just quietly shelve it? I'll pin the best theory. See you in the next one.